Hi guys, I am working today to clean up the space behind me. Believe it or not, there are actually some intentionally planted plants here. There is a weed barrier that is a disaster, and it's shady right now, but it's normally a morning sun, high afternoon to evening sun location. So let's get to work before it gets way too hot. Hi again. So I'd like to talk a little bit about what I'm doing in this garden space. And as I mentioned earlier, it gets a ton of morning light, there's a little bit of afternoon shade, and then it gets like full-on sun from the other side of the plot for the rest of the day until sunset. And as you can see, I have a love-hate relationship with weed barriers. I mentioned before, I tend to prefer the cardboard method because it allows for a full season of suppressing weeds or grasses while your newly planted plants can establish themselves. And then after that breaks down and everything's established, you can essentially work directly back into the soil. But I have a couple of areas where I don't anticipate on making a whole lot of changes over a period of time. I want to do some permanent planting, and I want to control weeds or what might pop up in a more long-term fashion. So because this is on a hillside, I don't want to do a whole lot of ongoing maintenance on the actual hill. So what I've done is I've planted some juniper blue carpet, I believe is the variety, where it will eventually blanket the hillside in itself. And then to define the border itself, I planted some arbs. You might notice that there's a space between the arbs that's a little bit larger than what the goal of having a hedge would make you think should be there. And that's because this has been a weird year for garden centers, but I am waiting for another variety of arb to become available to place in between. And I did not fully mulch the area yet because I still have some plants in the greenhouse that I'm deciding if this is the area I want to plant them in, and I want to include and incorporate some full season pollinator friendly perennials in the area. And I think I want to put one ornamental tree somewhere in the middle of this space, but I'm not quite sure yet. And because this is a new garden space to me, I want to make sure that I'm not doing more work and undoing work that I've already done and doing things twice. I want to just mulch the things that I've planted and then fill it in later. So let me know how you deal with garden spaces that tend to have a weird terrain to them. Do you have big hill and valley garden spaces? What do you plant in them? Do you make them more permanent, seasonal? Do you plant a ton of meadow flowers in there to attract? Do you plant a bunch of meadow flowers in there to feed the pollinators and just repeat that every year? I'd like to know. What do you do with like the weird terrain areas that you make garden spaces with? I hope you've been botanically inspired. Remember to keep growing your environment, and I'll share more with you soon. Tschüss!